Conversational Academy.
Yeah, so let's start this off. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining today. Like I said, it's actually a big and important day for us because we're going to be announcing some of the new course materials that we've been working hard at. And some of you are clients of ours, so you've seen a lot of this maybe already in practice by some of the on-site workshops that we do a lot of and that we enjoy doing with you. But we're also launching a new certificate with underlying skill sets and underlying course materials. So that's one of the things that we'll be talking about a lot today, actually. So I'll be sharing some of these things, and then we're just going to open it up for questions. No idea how long that might take, right? I have the tendency to talk a lot, but I also talk fast, so you don't know, right? We'll see where we end up, but we'll try to have some fun. So in general, like what we've been doing at Robocopy is really, recognizing, developing, and promoting the role of the conversation designer, where we see that every enterprise in the world is using AI to talk to people through chatbots, voice assistants, IVR systems. And that requires conversation designers. And just like companies started building mobile teams and web teams, they're now starting to develop conversational AI teams, right? So what's the skill set that you need in a conversation design team? And what are some of the course materials and responsibilities that we can develop for that, right? And I think in general, just like you cannot imagine a company without engineers today, you cannot imagine a company without conversation designers 5 years from now. And at Robocopy, we've been very fortunate to sort of be at the forefront of this and work with lots of clients. And what we've been able to do, and that's what I think I'm most proud of, been able to sort of take what all these experienced conversation designers that have been doing this for years, and nobody cared much for them. They were always sort of in a basement somewhere crafting conversations, and now all of a sudden they're rock stars of the industry. And everybody that has experience in conversation design is either working at Google or Amazon or at Robocopy, I guess now. But we talked to a lot of these experts, and we saw patterns and similar things that everybody was doing, and we've been able to put that in a framework and a methodology that we can now sort of teach and certify on. So that's what I'm most proud of. And this methodology is already, these certificates are trusted and supported by lots of brands around the world that we're very fortunate to work with. And what we see at all these enterprises is this road to maturity, right? So every company starts with one bot, whether it be a chat bot or a voice assistant. It can be anything. It often starts in customer service. And then that chatbot becomes a bit smarter. It becomes transactional. Instead of explaining where you can buy a pizza, it allows you to now order a pizza. It's more integrated. And then other departments are like, yay, we want a bot too. This is amazing. Can we get something going? So you're going to get multiple bots within the organization. And then somebody stands up that says, we need to organize this. We need to create a department around this. We need to develop some serious capabilities around this, because otherwise it may not be successful, right? And then, if you really get the scale, that department starts enabling other departments as well, right? So maybe different brands, different countries, different languages, and so forth. So we sort of see this pattern everywhere. And, depending on where you are in this process, it says something about the type of capabilities that you need and sort of what's going to be important in your bot. Another way of looking at, is the AI assistants in the enterprise, right? So you've got level 1 all the way up to level 5 conversational AI assistants. This is a known framework. Rasa uses it a lot in their talks, right? So in the past decade, everybody was doing notification assistance, right? Thanks for choosing Super Telco. Your billing starts today. And where we are now at level 2 is, the FAQ assistant. So we're just helping people, answering a bunch of questions and sort of keeping that simple. Now, the next step is, some companies are already pushing there, is to create omni-channel contextual assistance, right? So We're going to be opening more channels. We're going to be on the socials. We're going to be on WhatsApp. We're going to be on the Google Home. We're going to be on Alexa. Doesn't really matter. So we start adding interfaces there, and we're going to get much smarter, right? So we're going to be more integrated with the backend. And 3 to 5 years from now, we're going to be more proactive. We're going to be more personalized. We're actually going to be using more AI, right? And eventually, we'll have these super AI systems that, control everything. They'll control our minds. They know what we want before we want it, right? So combining this maturity model of what the organization looks like with this development within AI sort of sets the foundation of what we're actually talking about when we talk about conversation design, right? And this is, everybody that knows this slide, what conversation design is, right? So at the end of the day, we're still having a conversation between an artificial brain and a human brain, right? And both these brains have their own limitations, their own capabilities, their own superpowers, and their own needs, right? So an AI brain needs to understand intent and entities and context and variables. So we've got all this natural language understanding technology that helps with that, right? And the market is heavily focused on that, right? It's all tech. But on the other end of the spectrum, we've got a human, and that human needs empathy and helpfulness and guidance. So when we design these conversations, we need to give that to them, right? So if you ever want to have good interactions between humans and AI, then natural language creation needs to be equally important as natural language understanding. And that means that technology, psychology, and language need to be equally important, right? And if you look at most organizations now, and I'm happy to see that it's already changing now, but if you would put these circles in scale, then you would have 10 engineers for one writer everywhere, right? But you would want to have that fairly balanced to ever get value from AI systems, to ever unlock the potential of conversational AI. So what we've been doing and what we've been working on lately is figuring out what are the responsibilities within an enterprise to actually get this going, right? And in the past year, last year, we launched our Conversational Academy, and we launched the, where it is, the first one here, the Conversation Designer Certificate, right? So we taught people all the fundamental techniques of conversation design. What is an acknowledgement? What is an implicit confirmation? What's an explicit? What's a prompt? The cooperative principle, all these fundamental conversation design tactics, plus the conversation design methodology. What are all the steps that I have to take as a team to create valuable experiences? Well, what we're adding now is the conversational expert. And later on, we're going to have the certified AI trainer, right? And today we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between these certificates and why we think it is important to have different certificates in this market. Because it turns out the most creative people faint whenever they see a spreadsheet or an AI platform or anything that resembles that. And people that love to work with data and that love to train language models, well, they don't care very much for personality and psychology and brand, right? So it's very difficult to find people that can do it all. That's what we've been seeing at companies that really want to get to scale. So if you look at it from this perspective, what we saw earlier, right, the AI trainer is more focused here on the technology, whereas the conversation designer is more focused on, psychology, making it human-centric, right, and understanding what is the most natural flow of the conversation, doing user needs and bot needs, doing sample dialogue, doing Wizard of Oz testing, and then the conversational expert is the person that's really in charge of language. That's like the final editor that gives it that extra punch around personality and psychology. And having these underlying skill sets anchored within your team and within your organization is not only allowing you to create good chatbots and voice assistants for one single department, but building your teams around these skill set is allowing you to develop AI interactions at scale. We work with teams of 100 people using these frameworks, and that's really when you start, maturing in a way, right? So the conversation designer is the advocate of the user and outlines the high-level structure of the conversation, right? So this person is in charge with the conversation design process, doing user research, doing Wizard of Oz testing, right? This is people with like a background in design and user experience. And every organization has these people, so we just need to teach them new skills. And then we got the conversational expert. So he's the expert in human communication and conversational copywriting techniques, right? So we focus on personality, psychology, and drive strategy. This is often the most senior person on the team as well. These people have a background in communication, in marketing, and copywriting, and content creation. I know, for voice, people actually with a background in music are very good at this because they just have an ear for how things sound better, right? And then we've got the AI trainer. So this is more technical and in charge of using and understanding data, right? So these people are involved with intent scoping, doing the analytics, doing the implementation in the platform, whatever you're using, whether it be Dialogflow or Rasa, Microsoft or ChatLayer, whatever it may be. So this person sort of, understands data and how to use. Let's see, am I letting people in or are people getting in? Do I have people on hold? No, I think I'm good. So yeah, these people often have a background in data science or in customer. Often they're also, overqualified customer service people, which we all have, right? So everybody has people working in customer service that are just going through the motions of answering questions, but they're capable of so much more. And they're often used to working with very complicated systems, right, in customer service. So these people could actually become your AI trainers. So find them in your team or find them in your organization and add them to your team. And then there's, this is always the slide of overwhelm. So what are we actually going to teach these people? Well, here's all these copywriting techniques that you can teach them to create good voice assistants and chatbots. But sort of walk you through the process real quick before you sort of explain to you which certificate is going to be working on which step in the process, right? So in general, there's 3 steps, right? The requirements, happy conversation design, and detailed conversation design. In the requirements phase, when you start a project, you only do this once. Whenever you launch, you obviously start iterating on persona. It continues to evolve, but you explore sort of what technology are we working with, like what kind of integrations are there, what's coming in the near future, what's our AI system, what are we working with here, and then we look at the business. What's our expertise, right? What are some of the use cases that we should be working on, and create a backlog based on that. So now we know what conversations we're going to be having. Then we look at the personas, right? Who are we actually going to have these conversations with? Who are the users? And then the question is, who is best to have that conversation on our behalf? And that's your bot personality, right? So a lot of this work is done by the experts, right? That really understand what a personality is and how that works. Manage participants. What's happening here? Yeah, I'm at meetings. Michelle, are you in, Michelle? My mouse is, yay, Michelle is in. Good to see you, Michelle. Thanks for joining us. And then the next step, we're, happy conversation design, which sounds great and is a lot of fun, right? So we take the use case, then we have the canvas where we look at the bot needs and the human needs, right? Because, a human has both rational and emotional needs, right? So when they talk to a voice assistant or, a chatbot, like what do they expect of it? What motivates them? What are some of the things that they're afraid of? So we need to consider that, right? And be aware of that. And on the other hand, we have a bot with certain responsibilities and certain superpowers. So sometimes there's information that he already has because he's very cleverly integrated with a CRM system, or legal wants him to say a few words about certain legal things, right? And there's certain questions that he needs to ask to turn it into a successful conversation. So we put that out on the canvas, and then we do sample dialogue, right? And I'm not going to jump into that too much because, it's already in the academy. A lot of you know what sample dialogue is, and otherwise there's other content on that. But it's role play, right? And somebody plays the user and the other person plays the bot, and they sit back to back from each other. So there's no visual communication, and you're left with just the conversation, right? And whatever the user says, whatever question comes to mind, He needs to speak freely. And then every time the user asks a question, we have to think, is there more people that would want to know this? And if that's the case, the bot should probably proactively communicate that. And that builds empathy, that builds trust, that builds higher completion rates and more successful AI experiences, right? Then we turn it into a flow chart. We validate that through Wizard of Oz, and then we do the expert rewrite. That's obviously done by the conversational expert. Make sure that all the periods and commas in the right place, but also that all these sentences have acknowledgments and confirmations, and that they have clear prompts, and that they're using some of the psychological tricks that I'll show you later on. All right. Let's see, next one. Yay. And then the last step is detailed conversation design, right? So it's the intent recognition, which is like the AI training, right? Training the language model. So your AI trainer is going to be doing that. Then we got to figure out the long tail. When do we hand it over to an agent, and when don't we? We create repair flows, and then we start implementing it, right? Generally, what we see with this methodology is that it's going to save costs implementing it, right? Because you're design conscious, right? You're very clear of what you want to do and what you don't want to do. So you don't just start building and building and building and get into a situation where you're over invested in AI without getting any value. So you're going to save costs implementing this, but also you're going to save a lot of time optimizing it, because using a clear design process means that you're going to have a very strong that you're going to have arguments of why the design is the way it is, right? So when you're going over the data and going over the analytics, all of it makes more sense because you know what kind of reasoning you had when you tried it in the first place, right? So what we see is higher completion rates because there's more empathy. People feel understood. They're happy to follow along with you. And Wieger is in the call, and they did an amazing A/B test at a telco here in the Netherlands, where they actually demonstrated that when there's more empathy at the beginning of a conversation, and it's the same like, when you go to a shop with a certain question and you feel like the person working there really gets it, then you're happy to follow along with him. And he's just going to ask you simple question, right? Is it, are you going to use it on a daily basis? Is it just you using it or other people? So they're all like, very narrow questions, which you're happy to answer because you already believe that he's going to help you, right? So empathy leads to higher completion rate. Whereas a lack of empathy, if you feel misunderstood, you start talking a lot because you want the other person to get you. And that doesn't really work with conversational AI systems. So happier people, higher NPS, lower cost. You guys get it, right? So one of the things that we're now adding to the curriculum, and I hadn't said that yet, but everybody that's already a member of the Academy is just going to get access to this, right? So everybody has a subscription, and with that subscription, you have access to all the content that we're putting out, right? So there's going to be recorded lectures. So that's the stuff that we're showing now, but we're also going to have regular webinars where you're not just going to be listening and talking to me, but we're going to bring in some of our friends and some of our experts and some of the clients that we work with to share use cases and do stuff like that. And then we're working closely now with lots of these tech companies to actually develop course materials around their platforms. Because what you'll see now is that a lot of these tech companies are putting out course materials around their wonderful platform, but it's always created for engineers, where we're going to create content where potentially Dialogflow is going to explain to me, a dumb conversation designer, how their tech works, right? And that way we're sort of trying to bridge that gap between technology and actually human-centric design. So this personality content is going to be available for everybody. Jasper Klimby is one of the creators of this content, and he joined us team this year, actually, I guess a couple months ago, and he started working on content, and he's a great guy to be doing that because he's a conversational expert, and he actually worked on some of the jokes that you might know from the Google Assistant, right? So whenever, here in the Netherlands, not everywhere, but whenever you ask it to tell a joke and you don't laugh, then you need to call Jasper. He's also a screenwriter. And we're very happy that he joined us this year. So he created some personality content. He says sharing is caring, right? So the question is always like, why would you want to create personality content? And for a lot of brands, it's often presented as an add-on, right? At the end, we've done everything. Can we please, maybe add a few jokes or anything, right? Doesn't really work that way. You want to have personality content because relationships are strengthened and deepened by shared meaning, maybe through a shared cultural reference and inside jokes, right? So personality content really helps to build rapport with your users. And personality content is great because it also makes your users more forgiving, right? So if you're creating a voice experience or a chatbot, and obviously not everything is going to work, right? But if you have personality content around it, then it's really amazing because, people are going to get more forgiving because they also have a relationship with you. So add personality content, right? So you need a bot persona in general to already, define your tone of voice and write consistently and create good, trustworthy experiences. And based on that bot persona, you want to add personality content to create, a better relationship in general. So there's a bunch of things that you can add, right? So there's chit chat and curated content and Easter eggs and seasonal content. We've developed courses for all of this. So there's videos on there where Jasper is going to be explaining a lot of that. And the general rule is fun in, fun out, right? So when a user is looking for fun, give them fun, right? Where are you from? What's your name? What's your age? How old are you? Are you friends with Siri? Who do you like better, Alexa or the Google Assistant? Answer these questions, right? And create content around it. But when people ask a serious question, be serious and help them get the job done, right? So that's the basic rule around personality content. So yeah, we even created content about writing jokes, right? So if you have a bot, then he needs to tell you jokes. So in the new course materials, we're going to explain you how to write jokes. I never thought I would end up teaching people how to write jokes, but this is the first step, just as a teaser here. Word association. So here we see a lovely cheetah, right? And a cheetah is well known for its speed, right? And a cheetah has a double meaning because it sounds like a cheater. Oh, we got people still joining us or not. Let's see how that works. No, we're good. So cheetah has a double meaning because it also sounds like cheater, right? So that's fun. That's something we can work with. So then we're going to create these associations around words, right? So this is a method that you can just use. So there's, cheater, the Olympics, a big cat, events, cheating, prizes, winner, track, animal. There's so many, running, fastest. There's so many words that are going to come to mind once you start with the cheetah and you start associating freely with that, right? So you want to then create a small story. The cheetah was a cheater, so it won all the events at the Animal Olympics. Oh, that's brilliant. That's something that you can then work with, right? Based on the word association that you did. So that's a lot of fun already. But then we need to turn that into a Q&A form, right? So somebody says, tell me a joke. How did the big cat win all the events at the Animal Olympics? He was a cheetah, right? And so this is just one of the things that we put in there. I'm sure everybody was laughing, but I can't hear you. It's best. This is comedy gold. Comedy gold, this is. So there's patterns and techniques that you can use to create jokes to add to your personality content. And I think every brand should be doing that once you got the basics up and running, right? But really, so the new content that we're putting out, part of it is the personality content, but most of it is about designing behavior, right? We've shown this at most of our talks that we've been doing around the world, but this is a framework created by Bill Price, who was the first VP of customer service at Amazon. It's called the value irritation model. It's very helpful. It says, some things are helpful or valuable to the customer, but not so much to the brand, and the other way around, some things are valuable to the brand, but not so much to the customer, right? Well, if we both don't care, then we eliminate that from the business process altogether, right? But if the customer cares, and we don't really, changing an address, or it doesn't really add anything to our revenue, that's stuff we want to automate, right? So we want to increase self-service and use chatbots to make that easier. So a lot of use cases are here. But then there's stuff that, we want to, that's valuable to us, download a paper, buy this product, schedule a meeting, leave your review, do a survey, right? That's stuff we want to simplify. And we can use bots for that as well. That's why voice is so amazing, because you just say something and it gets done, right? It removes all the barriers and it makes stuff simple. The problem between, or the difference between the two here, in customer service, where we want to automate, we're dealing with motivated users, right? Because they've got something that they want to resolve. But here at the top left, we're dealing with unmotivated users, right? So we need to increase motivation. And a lot of content that we've now created is based around increasing motivation. A lot of stuff that we have to give credit to for this is BJ Fogg. And he just released a book called Tiny Habits. Go and read it. He's a social science research associate at Stanford, and he's the founder of the Standard Behavior Design Lab. And if you don't know him, you might know some of his students, because a lot of his, or not a lot of his students, some of his students went off to create companies like Instagram and Uber, and they were heavily involved with Facebook because they understand how to make products, sticky, addictive, I guess is a word we could use as well, right? So, and a lot of that is based on the framework that he created. He has now published like a manifest where it says, please don't use my stuff for evil. I guess that's good. So we're happy to sort of use some of the stuff. All right. So this is the BJ Fogg behavioral model. It pretty much says that you can prompt a desired behavior by increasing motivation and ability, right? So whenever you want to design behavior, you need to think about motivation, ability, and the prompt, right? So when people are heavily motivated, it doesn't have to be that easy. They're happy to work a little harder. And on the other hand, if it's something is super easy to do, then the motivation doesn't even have to be that high, right? But you always need a prompt, a trigger to set that behavior into motion, right? And a lot of stuff that we've been doing is based around this model. So behavior equals a good balance between motivation, ability, and triggers, right? And that's what this framework says. So when the phone rings and it goes unanswered, why is that, right? And these are some of the, questions that we should be asking. Well, it could be anything, actually, right? Maybe I see that that it's my in-laws and I don't want to talk to them, right? So I don't answer. So that means there's a lack of motivation. Or maybe I'm actually in the kitchen and my hands are just stuffing a turkey, so my hands are dirty, so I cannot answer it. Then it's ability. There's not enough ability on my end to actually do the behavior. Or maybe my phone was on silent, so I didn't hear it. So then there was no prompt, there was no trigger, right? So you always need to have all three in the right balance to get a desired behavior. So along these three axes, there's different copywriting techniques that you can use. So if we want to look at motivation, there's techniques like social proof, urgency, commitment, positive feedback, loss aversion, anticipation, ask again. These are all psychological principles, copywriting techniques that you can use to increase motivation. If you look at ability, you can use soft call to actions. You can use choice architecture. You can use anchoring as a technique to increase ability if you feel like that's the problem, why you don't get your users to do what you would like them to do. And then if we look at triggers, there's the exceptional benefit, steering curiosity, single question, right? These are all different techniques that help at different points in the behavior design framework, right? So now if we look at conversation design for persuasive dialogues, right? A conversation often looks like this, right? I want to spark interest. So I want to talk about something as a bot. So I want to intrigue users and I want them to engage with me. And once we're sort of in the conversation, I want to increase motivation, right? Because maybe I want them to buy a product or sign up for a webinar. So I want to increase motivation. And then at the end of it, I want to come to resolution, right? I want to get job done. I want them to sign up. I want them to buy. I want them to, hit the send button or whatever, right? So here we can apply these same copywriting techniques at a certain point in the conversation. Right, so to spark interest, we can use the simple questions, steering curiosity, present an exceptional benefit. If we want to increase motivation, then all these techniques would apply when we design conversations, right? And I know a lot of you are still working on very simple interactions, right? Where it's like, a conversation of 2-3 turns max, right? Or in voice, it's still, a lot of it is very, like a command where there's a Q&A thing. But these conversations are going to get longer, and it's techniques like this that are going to allow them to get longer because, people just get a better experience. So these are all part of increasing motivation. Then we have the resolution. So at the end of the conversation, we want to show gratitude, never a dead end street, and the pecan rule. So we created videos around all these different techniques for you to learn them, get familiar with them, and become that conversational expert that is really going to knock it out of the park in your conversational AI team, right? So let's just look at like a concept like social proof real quick, right? So that's part of increasing motivation here. So in general, people copy the actions of others in an attempt to undertake behavior in a given situation, right? So that's why, a lot of times when the restaurant that's busy, people will go in line there because it must be good, right? We all know that. Usually you see like a street of a bunch of restaurants and then one is packed and the others are empty. Why is that? Social proof, right? Why does it work? Well, you don't want to be the only one, right? And other people probably know best. And people always want to belong to a group, right? So these are very important concepts and reasons why social proof works a lot of the time. And we can apply it in conversation design. So we got a cable company using a chatbot. Want the plus package? I don't know, right? But by saying most families in Amsterdam take the plus package, do you want that as well? This is going to increase the conversion rate of this single prompt, right? Here he says it. Yeah, I want it. Wonderful. So that's how you can use social proof in conversation design. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. I don't care. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. For most people, this only takes a minute, right? So we're using social proof here and expectation management. Have you paid your taxes yet? 9 out of 10 people in London pay their taxes on time. Need some help? So we're always using social proof here. And just me showing you this, you're probably already feeling that these are better sentences, right? And this is going to deliver a better result. What's important with social proof, make it as specific as possible, right? So, 9 out of 10 in London, people like you, and describe the people like you. That's important. There's more stuff on that. The soft call to action. Also part of increasing motivation. So we don't want to be too forceful when we ask a question, right? So we don't want to be too salesy. More users will finish your dialogues when you do this, so you're going to get higher conversion rates, right? So a flower distributor is looking to boost its sales numbers. Well, that's very kind. So instead of saying we offer a wide range of flowers, what do you want to order, right? It's very strong. Again, he's confused, doesn't like it. We offer a wide range of flowers. Can I show you some? Right? It's softer and it's going to increase conversion rate. So you want to have a longer conversation, because a lot of times the conversations are very short now, and because they're short, they have a very strong, question there, which causes users to drop out. So then people will be like, yeah, it's not working. Let's kill this voice project, right? But, designing better and having softer call to actions builds more rapport. It allows people to feel more comfortable around you. They trust you more, and, they're more happy to buy from you. Sure, there again. So we've got anchoring, right? A lot of you might sort of be familiar with this. The phrase, it's also, thinking fast and slow. Everybody that's read that book knows anchoring as a technique. It's also part of increasing motivation. All right, so midway the conversation where we want to get people to do something. So the human tendency to rely on a single and often first piece of information to inform our decision making on. That's sort of what anchoring is, and that's the anchoring principle. right? And we know this from everywhere, right? So instead of saying, this is the best product for your industry and it's only $249, get this. It's much more effective to say, the suggested retail price is $400, but now it's only $249. And then it ends today, even adding that, right? But just having the $400 in there makes the $249 seem cheaper and more affordable, and it's going to increase conversion rate. So that's how anchoring is used. And you can use this in conversation design as well. So a lot of this stuff isn't new, right? It's finding a new interface to apply it and finding the conversation for it. You can already lease a car for 199 euros per month. Want to know how this works? I don't know. I don't care. We can do better, right? Lease car that's worth 15,000 euros for only 199 euros per month. Want to know how that works? Yeah, I do. You see, by now adding the value of the 15,000 makes the 199 seem super cheap, right? And this is going to deliver a better result, right? So if you're using a conversational interface to get someone to buy a product or sign up for something, using anchoring is a very effective technique. You could even add social proof to this as well, right? 9 out of 10 people in your city are leasing a car worth 15,000 for only 199 per month. Want to know how that works? All right, and then there's sort of the soft call to action again as well, right? So all these principles can be applied in all these sentences. Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. I should not have done that. I had a little voice that said don't do that, but I did. So wrapping it up here for today, still this is the core of everything that we do, right? We have an artificial brain talk to a human brain. They both have their own needs. They both have their own limitations and capabilities. And instead of focusing on natural language understanding, we need to make natural language creation equally important as natural language understanding. And that together is conversation design. But you all signed up and you're here today, so you know that. That's wonderful. So what it means is that we need to have that fair balance between technology and psychology and language, right? And that challenge of unifying that in the best way possible, that challenge is solved really by this methodology, a step-by-step guide that every team in the world can use. And we really see it as the Scrum of conversational AI, right? Where it is the process and the framework and the certificate that you need when you go near a chatbot or a voice assistant, particularly if you're an enterprise and you get to scale and you got 100 different deployments of AI assistants and you want to ensure quality. You really want to get it in the operation, then you need a step-by-step framework that allows people to work in similar ways and that solves for the challenge of unifying technology, psychology, and language, right? So these 3 certificates are going to be launched. So we already have the conversation designer, and a lot of you in the call here today, are certified designers. The next one is really the conversational expert that, the team goes through these steps and then, the natural conversation comes out through sample dialogue, through Wizard of Oz testing. We know what the structure is. But now, how are we going to add that extra layer? How are we going to elevate this conversation to make sure that we get the desired behavior? And sometimes the desired behavior is to, get people calmly to a service agent. And sometimes it is to leave a review or buy a product or sign up for something. So this is going to be launched within a week. Within the team's working really hard. So thank you for team. They're working around the clock to get this live, and everything's recorded. It's ready to go. It's the final tweak, so it should be live within a week. And then our next step is to develop the materials and certification around the certified AI trainer. So that's the next one on our own personal development and shopping list, right? So yeah, that went too fast. So if you sort of look at, all the steps on this side that are part of the methodology, right? And here it sort of shows you which certificate would be responsible for successfully going through that step, right? And I don't think that every team would need, 3 people, right? there's lots of teams where one person, both understands the design part and the expert part, and then he's got a friend, he's an engineer that helps him out sometimes, right? So these aren't job titles. They don't have to be. These don't have to be separate people, but they are a certificate that represents an underlying skill set. And we very strongly believe that that skill set is required in the market to actually unlock the potential of conversational AI. All right, so the Online Academy, sign up if you haven't. We've got a new studio, so you'll see that too. And this is me, and I guess we'll open it up for questions that you might have. Let's see, I'll stop sharing the screen so I can see you guys again. Let's see. Oh, I saw lots of chats. Yeah, let's do it. I got a yeah, let's do it. What's happening here? Okay, so is there any questions? Is there anything that you would like to share? I think it's also, I said it when we were starting out and not everybody had joined us yet, but one thing that we see as well, there's lots of people that are now, certified conversation designers, but it's still sometimes tricky to get work as a freelancer because, oftentimes your client really doesn't know yet what conversation design is, and you haven't done many projects yet. So how do you build, a reputation for yourself as a conversation designer? So on Medium, we created a magazine where it's written by certified conversation designers, so anyone can write articles there, and we'll share it with the community. So the goal is really to just educate the industry, and sort of build a reputation as a conversation designer, making it easier for you on your career path. So got a question here from Lindsay. Check in if I understand correctly. Is the expert learning? We also zoom in on persuasion and conversion. Yes. So the expert, the conversational expert, is personality and using psychology, all these psychological principles to make chatbots and voice assistant more successful. So there's a lot of persuasion. There's a lot of emphasis on conversion. But for us, conversion, I think the goal in a dialogue, the goal of every prompt is to get the next prompt launched, right? So there's a conversion challenge on every micro interaction within a larger dialogue. So that's where you would use these persuasive principles. Do we have any other questions? Yay, another one. Or no, yeah. Where'd it go? Yeah. Is there anything in the expert training that goes more in depth on creating the convo flows? There is not. However, it is one thing that I know we need to add more. So what I'm actually going to be doing is a few sessions where it's just going to be me and the canvas, and we'll explain better how that canvas works and how you actually as a team work around it. So we'll bring in a few people and do sessions like that, and then also more emphasis on the sample dialogue itself, because in the current course we sort of make it seem like there's 1-2 goes and that's it. But we need to do a better job at that, so we're going to create more content around that. So that's just going to be added to the platform as well. So that will help with the flows, and then taking these post-its on your canvas and then going on to creating flowcharts. What is intent scoping? That's a wonderful question. So intent scoping is, they also call it use case identification in a way, right? So what you'll have is, lots of people are going to be interacting with your assistant, and a lot of times you don't really understand what they're saying. They drop out or there's noise. So you'll have people, the AI trainer, sort of going over the analytics and going over the data, and based on that data, finding new intents, right? And finding new use cases that, they might want to work on. So a lot of, if you look at the backlog of a conversational team, a lot of the use cases are going to be added, by business units, but also through the interactions that your bot's already having. And intent scoping is using that data to find new use cases and new intents and adding that to the backlog. How will the certification of the AI trainer and conversation examiner go? Online or only on-site workshops? Great question. It's online, yeah. So there's courses, there's just an online exam that you can take again. There's also one new change that we're doing some stuff with the writing test, that we're going to drop that for the majority of the people, and we're going to add it as an add-on, because we have so many people joining the academy now that it's very difficult for us to give everybody the personalized feedback that they want. So everybody that takes the exam is going to have a multiple choice question where we're really going to be testing how well do you understand all these principles, right? Do you recognize social proof, but also do you recognize when it's not there? Or do you notice it when there's an acknowledgement missing or a question mark or whatever? So we're going to be testing on that, and then we're going to allow people to for a few bucks extra, do a writing test for an additional certificate. So everybody that is already in the academy now and has has done the EDI test, you will also be, it might take a while, but you will get a extra badge and extra certificates to show that you have also passed the written test. And people that will do that will also get personal reference actually from us that you can use on your LinkedIn and on your resume and on your personal website, where you'll have feedback from us to tell your clients that you actually know what you're doing. All right, so if you've gone through the course, you've got the certificate, you've done the written tests that allows you to get personal feedback and references, and you're writing an article for the online magazine, you're really positioning yourself as a conversation designer and making it easier for you to find jobs. And we're also, making it easier, making more connections for designers with some of the enterprises that we're working with as well. And we're also obviously continuing to do on-site workshops. We just had our first batch of a train-the-trainer bootcamp, right? So we've got these workshops. They're 4 hours, sometimes they're 8 hours, sort of depending on the needs of the client. So we're now teaching people how to give that workshop the same way that we've been taught, and passing that and being able to explain that process fundamentally to a group of people can make you a certified conversation design or a licensed trainer, I should say. So that makes it easier in local markets, wherever you are in the world, to actually start offering that in your local market. So we had people from Brazil fly in. We have people in Singapore actually doing that, in the US, and then we're building that network here in Europe to just scale the process of training conversation designers around the world. Is there anyone else? No. Oh, wow. And we're great on time. I'm very impressed by myself. Yeah, so we did about an hour. Let's see. Oh, here's a good one. Yeah, so where do we apply for the Medium article? Let me find, or I know there's people from Robocopy here as well. Maybe you guys can sort of share the link. Let's see. And the other, any suggestion on promoting your new skill set to potential clients? Well, I think, writing an article helps. Having, doing the written tests, getting some feedback from us helps. Having their certificate helps. Using just some of the slides, around what is conversation design, what's the framework, what are the challenges of an enterprise that, a part of the academy that you can just use, use it. Use it to your benefit and explain. The most important part is that you educate clients on the fact that conversation design is a new job, that it's a very serious job, an important job, and it's actually the job that determines the outcome of their project. So yeah, I would say that that's an important one, to just promote this new skill set, and obviously do marketing around that. But we'll try to boost you as much as well. Here's the Medium publication. It's in the chat now, right? So it's Conversational Academy. On there's a link where you can just sort of say, join, write, submit your articles. There's some suggestions of stuff that you could write or what the best format would be. If you want to write, but you're not sure what to write on, well, then maybe just reach out and we're happy to hop on like a 5-10 minute call and just, talk it through and sort of help you to get going there. I think it's in everybody's interest that, we're putting out as much content as possible as a community. So always available that. I may have missed it, but did you mention any other groups for those who complete the course aside from the LinkedIn group? Well, I think it's a good question because the LinkedIn groups aren't really great, are they? Right? So we might just I think we have a Facebook group that we probably need to reactivate or get a Discord or a Slack channel. We're looking into it. So any suggestions on that matter? Let us know. I guess that's the best way of doing it. For us, what we want to do is sort of create a closed group for the certified designers, but also have a public group for anyone interested in conversation design. And that's also what we're going to be doing with these virtual meetups that we'll be doing regularly. Some of them will be public, like this one. Some of them will be, for the certified community or just people, that have subscribed to the platform. Will we be sharing a recording of this webinar? Yes, we will. In fact, we have an extra camera running over there to sort of increase the quality a little bit. All right, so we'll take the slides from the Zoom, and then we'll do like a quick edit there, and we'll be putting that on YouTube, LinkedIn, or wherever you get your favorite conversation design videos. Another thing that we launched, I was just going to say, Wieger, have you ever thought of doing a podcast? I so appreciate this question because now it doesn't sound like I'm bragging. This week I've been recording 4 episodes already. So we did one with Bot Society, with Bot Copy, with 2 others I cannot mention. But one thing we're also doing, and I just saw the rough edit for that today. You may have seen the trailer. Together with Jason Gilbert of Coco Conversational Components in Tel Aviv, we're actually starting a talk show. It is us, about an hour. It's an hour-long episode, and we're going to talk about bots. And what we're really asking everyone, so you guys too, please send in your voice assistants, your chat bots, and we're going to be talking about it, and we're going to be evaluating it, and we'll give you some pointers, we'll give you some feedback. We're not too harsh, we're just out there to educate. So we've got that talk show, Hans and the Botman. Then we've got conversations with Hans van Dam. Yeah, my name is in everything. That doesn't sound right. So we got the podcast. We've got the virtual meetups that we're going to be doing at least every month. What did I say? Podcast, virtual meetups, and the talk show. Yes. And then obviously in these virtual meetups, we're going to have different speakers as well, because you will get tired of me. And if you watch me too much, I might haunt you in your dreams. Will we be notified if our bot makes the cut when you send it in? Yes, obviously. Yeah, that's a good question, I guess. Yes, but I decide now that you will be notified, but you should just be watching every episode, because then we don't have to notify. So yeah, I think the first episode of that is launching next week, and podcasts are going through editing. In the subscription, there's already course materials recorded that we're going to add on chatlayer.ai, on Flow AI. We recorded some stuff with BotMock. The new Bot Society tool is next. We're going to have everybody on. We want to, just create the platform for all these conversational platforms. So Artificial Solutions going to be there. I think that now the guys at Google are hearing this, and they're like, yeah, we need to be there too. So we'll just try to make that as open as possible. Will you share the podcast links? Yes, we will. I think we'll try very hard for you guys to notice that we have a podcast. And I think what we would really appreciate, and I'll tell you that very honestly, is for you guys to subscribe to it and share it and really see it as, the platform for the community. We're in this together, and I love that we're growing, because when we started, over a year ago, we would have these webinars and we'd have like 10 people show up. And then I know Olaf, co-founder, he would have his whole family sign up for it, right? So it would look like there were people. And now we've just got like 40 people from all over the world in this webinar. So it really shows you that, conversation design is real and it's here to stay, and we're all part of it. So let's all, work our ass off to grow it. Is there anyone else? And Cami is in the call too. And Cami she just graduated and she wrote a wonderful thesis. So we're going to have her on the podcast. We'll have to see when we schedule that. And I think it's also great content just to have some course or lecture built around it. One thing that I hadn't mentioned is Ilaria, who's also in the call. She's doing her PhD at Politecnico in Milan, and she spent some time with us here, and she worked very hard on an apprentice course, because what we see is that, because we give a lot of talks at universities as well, and it's often sometimes like we assume that people, know what conversational AI is, and then the problem that we solve through design, right? But what we're doing is creating an apprentice course that is going to be, readily available, that we want universities to use, that is going to just teach people, what is AI? What is conversational AI? What's a chatbot? What's a voice assistant? Why does it matter? What are the benefits? And then, why is it important to have design around it? And it's really an introduction course that is going to get people, excited, hopefully, but more importantly, just familiar with this, career choice that you can now have, right? Because we're going to be needing millions of conversation designers around the world if we're actually serious about using AI to talk to people, right? So if the EU just launched the AI strategy for the next few years going forward, and it says 5 years from now 10 million people in the EU are going to be working as in data science and stuff like that. So a lot of those 10 million people are actually AI trainers and conversation designers, right? So there's so many people that have a non-engineering background that are going to be the most important people actually in AI-driven experiences. So we're growing. Be part of it. What's that? Oh, so you got Remy has leads that says, "What is a chat box?" Yeah, I think you might want to give up on those leads. I would, sort of talk to the clients that say, "Hey, we overinvested in conversational AI. Please come and help." I think that's sort of who you want to target there. Yeah. Anyone else? See, I'll just continue to sit here as long as you guys are here, but I'm also happy to wrap it up. One final question, maybe. One final question. I'll give someone 1 minute or 10 seconds to write a final question. Otherwise, I'll say goodbye. Bring me the next poem. There's a blurred line between an AI expert and a conversation designer, an AI trainer and a conversation designer. Yeah, where does one end and where does the other begin? Yeah, there's some steps where there's some overlap, right? So, the way you describe your current leads, you're involved with smaller projects, and there's often a guy that does the conversation design that's also happy to sort of figure out how to implement that in Dialogflow, because he's watched some online videos and he's happy to sort of focus on that a little bit and get that going and going over the analytics using maybe our friend's tool from Dashbot. But once you get to a larger operation, you will see these become separate roles, even where the AI trainer is really working on language models, doing intent scoping, implementing in the platform, engaging with engineers when they need certain backend integrations and stuff like that, where the conversation designers is much more involved with actually research and talking to potential users and getting information from various stakeholders and getting it signed off and doing the wizard off test and doing the sample dialogue, right? So if you would have lots of interactions going and it's a serious operation, then you don't even have time to do both, right? But yeah, I think in the beginning of a lot of organization, can often be one person. Usually what you see now is, somebody, conversation designers that are excited. Some of them, like the tech a little more, so they lean towards that. And the other people enjoy writing a bit more, so they lean towards the expert. But once it scales and the stakes get higher, you'll see people make a decision around that. So that was our final question. So I guess I'll say thank you, everybody, for being part of this. So we're going to have lots of these virtual meetups. We'll obviously let you know when and how, and I hope you enjoyed this. I did. I was very proud to actually share this with you. The teams worked very hard at this, and it's been a journey. And so thanks to the team, and thank you guys for showing your interest and being part of it and supporting us. And with that, we will sign off. Thank you, everybody, and we'll talk soon.
Conversational.